Hello, welcome back to Gumbo Gaming. This is a video entitled Why I Refunded No Man's Sky. So I refunded No Man's Sky after 3 hours of playtime. And you might say, well, that's fucked up. Why would you refund it after 3 hours? Well, it's mainly because I think I've seen it all. I think I've seen everything that the game has to offer. And that annoys me somewhat because after 3 hours and then many more hours of watching people play it and talk about it and some stuff Total Biscuit did on it and seeing how far the rabbit hole in question goes, I think I've seen everything it has to do. I think I've seen everything that it can do. And that's somewhat annoying because I enjoyed the 3 hours that I spent. Um, I enjoyed it because the 3 hours that I spent were fun and I named stuff and I did some videos on it. And the sense of going to new planets and things was great. And then after a couple hours, started to see the same things, started to see the same color palettes and same generic things just lying around the planet. Those the gold deposits and the spiky stuff and the obelisks and everything like that. And it's all kind of the same. So I went back and I watched some trailers of it earlier and some stuff that Sean Murray, is it Sean or Seen? I don't know. That Sean Murray, isn't Sean Murray the snowboarder? I think so. Yeah, I'm sure I played a snowboarding game called Sean Murray Snowboarding years ago. Um, so yeah, I went back and I watched some of the trailers and saw some stuff and I thought, well, why haven't we got this? This had giant freaking sand lizards like dune worms, and big crashed star destroyer looking spaceships that you could explore, and planets that made sense. So a planet farther away from a sun would be cold. A planet close to the sun would be very hot or lava. And you would find very vastly different ecosystems that would make sense. Animals on those planets would be influenced by their environment. So you would see cold planets with certain types of creatures, and hot planets with certain types of creatures, acid planets with certain types of creatures. All we really have to determine that is some planets have water on them, some don't. That's kind of it. None have ice caps, none have variable ecosystems and biomes, so you don't have poles or anything that would make up a planet that would make sense, that would have life on it. They reckon that to support life you need water in all three states on a planet. So air, water needs to exist in both ice and water and gas to really support life. And you don't see that. You see these sort of single ecosystem planets that have, it's a desert planet or it's a forest planet or it's a rock planet. There's no variety on the planet themselves, which if they were trying to make it like a universe, you'd think they could program that in. What instead you get is they must have had, a row of color palettes, a row of material, a row of sort of life forms that then subsect into, the sort of Lego Lego construction thing they had with the life forms, where they just had, ears from this thing, head from this thing, body from this thing, give it this, and then they had all these little functions that just went boom, creature, random, completely random, no logic to anything they were doing. And then they just popped that on the planet and said how populated it was, and off you go. And that's how they do it. And it just seems so simplistic compared to how we were sold the thing to work. Maybe the technology for procedural generation on that level isn't there yet. Maybe this is the best they can do, and that's fine. Then sell us that. Sell us what you can do. Sell us Spore again. That's what it was. Um, and what we actually got out of it was something a bit simple and a bit repetitive. and nothing like the scope that they originally intended. And that's saddening to a point, because I don't think anyone would have been upset if they'd have told them what they were capable of doing and how it would work, and then sold that game. But they didn't do that. They sold us a logical universe, and we didn't get that. We got a random universe. A random universe with not that many permutations that are at least unique. There's no structure to anything. Every building looked the same. Every obelisk was the same. Every star system looked the same. There was a couple of black holes and things, but there's no rhyme or reason to anything that was going on. And the biggest thing that Sean said was going to happen was that everything did have a logic to it, a physics to it. If you had a planet that was orbiting a sun, it would have a time that it orbited, and every planet would have a different time frame for night and day because of that. Not just a random number. It was, the night and day cycle was because of how far away it was from the sun and how fast its orbit was and how it spun, and everything like that would make sense. It would have seasons where the planet would change because of that. I imagine that if you set up a base on a planet for hours and hours and hours, that you would experience change of seasons, because that's how planets work. They have those, and you don't get that because that would be too hard for them to do, and it would be too hard for them to put into the computer to work out. So it's probably a limitation of what they could do. But let's be clear: the game files are 2.5 gigabytes. Think about how small that is. Think about how much code is in 2.5 gigabytes compared to other games. How much art, how much direction it's being given with that smaller file size. Obviously that's no comparison because games vary, but when your graphics engine and your art and your combinations take up such a small amount of space compared to other games, what are you doing? When you're trying to create something as vast as that, use 40 or 50. Give us many more combinations of things. It just felt so lazy. It felt like they didn't have a lot to do, because once they'd made the mechanics of the game, all they had to do was start making different permutations, put it into the computer, process the whole thing, and there you have it. There was no. I guess the thing is that procedural generated games are an interesting proposition, and they will probably work in time. But for now, you need that combination of script and procedural generated stuff, so that everything doesn't seem so barrenly random. Because right now, that's what No Man's Sky felt like. It was just a bit heartless, because you knew when you met a new animal that there was no logic to that animal. There was no reason for it being there other than a random algorithm said it was. It had no interaction with anything else. We were told by Sean Murray that, animals hunt each other. There's a hierarchy on each planet, and certain animals would do certain things, and that's not what happened. They were just random creatures. In the trailer you saw the big sandworm that I mentioned, but you also saw like a big rhino thing stomping down trees and roaring to the sky and trying to get at you, and that never materialized. I've never seen someone encounter that on any playthrough that I've watched. And that pisses me off, because we were sold that. We were sold that survival aspect of it that isn't there. The drones that hunt you, why are they all the same across the entire universe? Why is every drone the same? You weren't exploring everything that you found, there were structures on nearly every planet, and they were all the same, or very nearly the same, or at least from the same architecture, and they were all very simple. So you were never feeling like the first person to set foot on this world. You were always the second or the third or whatever. And that's what we were sold on, the fact that you would have much more interaction with everything. And it just feels like you're an interloper just sort of walking around this environment and going from place to place, and there was nothing there. There was no substance once you got beyond that initial. I mean, in my first hour of playing it, which is on my channel, I was stunned by how cool everything was. And after a while, I started naming shit and going to other planets and thinking, oh, this is awesome, this is really cool. But then you get into the grind of it and it becomes so repetitive. And you don't feel like you've seen anything vastly new. You're just seeing stuff spat out of this random generator. And there's no sort of wonder in that. There was no amazement anymore going to a new planet after a short time. And when I've watched people play it on live streams and things, you feel that, like, when I first finished playing for like the third or fourth hour, I was thinking, right, okay, this must get better. There must be more variety. So I went onto Twitch and I started watching people, and I watched some more videos about it. I watched a couple of Total Biscuit stuff about it, which talks in great detail about it. And then you think, and then I got to thinking, there's no more to this. There's no more than I've already seen. If I keep playing this for 30, 40 hours, I'm going to just see the same shit day in, day out. And that's why I refunded it. And that's why I think that by advertising something that we didn't get, they are Hello Games who, support British developers and everything like that, and it's good that they did that. And by the way, they deserve some money for it. Go buy themselves some nice houses and cars and whatever. Probably get bought out by Sony at some point. But we deserve better than to be lied to by someone. I don't want to make a comparison to probably the biggest disappointment of the last couple of years, but Aliens Colonial Marines did this, and people didn't. All right, thankfully that game tanked, and they knew it had tanked. The problem I get with this, and the feeling I get with this, is the sales figures don't support the level of disappointment. They've sold a lot of units, and they will sell a lot more units, and partly I think because it's one of the first proper open world survival games on a PlayStation console, which people have been wanting for a while. So this sort of thing we've had on PC for a while, and people on console haven't had an Elite Dangerous or something in that vein. Even comparing it to stuff like Ark and Subnautica, which feels very similar to Subnautica. They didn't have that, so they'll sell a lot of copies. That's fine, and I think that means that they won't take the criticisms they've had into consideration, and they'll feel they got away with it, and that's the problem. Gearbox and Aliens Marines didn't get away with it because they sold fuck all and they had tons of refunds and the game was broken as shit and it wasn't what advertised, and they had to really drag their heels and apologize for it. I don't think this will happen with No Man's Sky because it was sold so many copies, and people who've bought it, I don't want to disenfranchise some people that play on console, whatever, but there are a lot of people that have bought it who may not have followed the game from early days and buy it on the strength of its marketing and what have you, and are fine with it because they see it, they're getting what they expect. If they don't pay as much attention to the way that things are sold to them, they'll see it and think, oh, this is great. But people that follow these sort of things and make up the hardcore sort of side of stuff, which I admit compared to sales is the number of us that care is probably dwindling. It's a hard thing to say, but in terms of the state of the industry, it worries me that they will get away with this. And they'll make tons of money, they'll make a sequel that might be a lot better. But I just feel that by refunding it, it was at least saying, I don't feel this worth £40 at this time. Maybe if they put it on sale, I will pick it up again if they do more to it. But right now, it does not feel like it's worth a full retail price on what they sold us as a game. Thank you very much. I'm Ngombe. I love you all as always. If you like me, follow me on Twitter, which is in my description, and it's @_Ngombe. And as always, love you all. Peace out.